Nobody's listening, right?
Hi, Andy.
Hello.
Is anybody listening?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What?
They are listening. What do we got here? Oh, this is from Nikki. Listening. Totally married, totally mommy listener. Back again. Wednesdays are the only day I don't mind my commute. Thank you.
Wow.
Appreciate that.
Wow.
Here's one from Schaefer. Schaefer Kun, maybe? Something like that. 5 stars. You see me. This is only the second time in my life I've left a review for anything.
Oh.
I, too, am a convert, thanks to St. Monica. Shout out.
God bless.
And I'm the only person that, and I am only sorry that I did not know about this podcast sooner. I feel so often that you are saying what is in my brain. The comfort I get when listening to Elizabeth's sweet voice and the safe...
Oh.
Hold on. Don't get too high on yourself. And the safety I feel from hearing Andy's.
Oh, wow.
Wait, hold on. Let me reread that. And the safety I feel from Andy's helps me get through stressful days. Just from this week alone, I found myself wishing I had thought of the biannual podcast with my family idea. And I would totally buy any back thing Elizabeth wanted to promote. The back thingy.
The back thingy.
Thank you for the laughs and happiness you bring in a world where everything seems topsy-turvy. How do you like that?
I feel full-hearted from those reviews. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who is leaving reviews in other countries. I realized there were reviews on Spotify I hadn't even checked out. It means the world to us.
I had a thought about these reviews and ratings. Because when we're talking about Eckhart Tolle...
Totally, yep.
Tolle? Mm-hmm. Eckhart Tolle. He has something like 2,700 reviews. And we would love to supersede that because he believes in the power of now, but we believe in the power of right now. Mm-hmm. Let's go. And what dawned on me is these reviews mean everything to us. And when you leave these reviews, we know that you leave your stars.
Yes.
And you might be a little upset that I'm even putting this out there, Elizabeth, but I just want to put it out there for any of those people that are like, I just can't write a review. I don't know how to write the review and whatnot. Or maybe you just don't like typing. You could still just blast those 5 stars for us. And that counts as a rating for us to get to Eckhart Tolle. So if for some reason that seems like an easy thing to do, just push those 5 stars or whatever you want to give us. And it gets us closer to taking down our nemesis, Eckhart Tolle. Just putting it out there.
Now, our nemesis? What the fuck are you talking about?
That's just how I'm feeling right now.
The power of now. No, he is... I don't like this whole nemesis thing. I mean, I like some healthy, one-sided competition.
Okay. How would you do it?
I just would never call him our nemesis. That's like poisoning the well.
It is?
I don't know. Yeah, you don't want to put that out there.
Okay, what should we put out there?
Our, what's it called? I wasn't, like, in sports enough to know. What's it called when you, like, your best friend and you are competing in something?
Oh, yeah, like there are
but
some
in
of
this
those...
case, it's a friendship where the best friend doesn't even know that you exist, but...
Yeah, but no, there's those, like, very beautiful rival friendships where, like, they're huge rivals, but there's a mutual respect.
Yes.
And I feel like we get that. Yeah, I think he respects us in a similar way, so I can imagine going down that route. So this is a healthy this is a healthy competition.
He doesn't know of our... I mean, maybe he does know of our
that's
existence.
the thing. Maybe he does know about us.
I don't think so.
Do you think you would ever interview him for your other podcasts? That should be out and about right now. The One Sure Thing.
It's definitely a goal. Well, I will say... okay, so... Yes, a huge goal of mine is to interview him for The One Sure Thing.
Okay.
The One Sure Thing is out on Spotify.
Nice.
It is not out on Apple Podcasts, and I'm worried that I'm doing something wrong on Libsyn, which is our distribution
No, you're a pro at this. I think sometimes the initial episode on iTunes, doesn't it say it can take like 7 to 10 days?
I know, but now I'm reading this article that's like, you have to submit your show into the Apple Podcasts Connect and all of this stuff that I definitely didn't do.
Oh, you might want to circle back on that then.
I just feel, as everyone knows, I've had a lot of anxiety around launching this. Definitely this episode is one of the most vulnerable things I've put out there. And then it feels like it's been botched.
Okay,
Like,
if Eckhart Tolle was in this room right now, what would he say to you? I'm being real.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
you are in your pain body right now.
You're in your pain body?
Yeah.
Okay.
All suffering is created by your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You can do and strive, but be present. It does not matter.
Wow. I thought it'd more just be like, oh, don't worry about it. It's going to work out okay.
That is what it is.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I think of an Eckhart Tolle as a little bit more like, just don't sweat the small stuff. This is all going to iron out. The podcast is going to show up on iTunes. It's going to be awesome.
That is what it is. But he's kind of more like,
Yoda-y.
yes, don't. You.
He laughs sometimes.
Sometimes he'll laugh like, this is not a big deal.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick side exercise. Because I mentioned you on a recent episode of Toilet Beverages and Sometimes Hot Sauce. We were talking about some of these guests that we want to get that are like on our vision board, like Barefoot Contessa, Phoebe Cates, and whatnot. And I said that you are so good at, like, if we bumped into one of these crazy people at a party, like, you would know what to do that then they would end up being on our podcast later. And so I put to you, we're at a party and Eckhart Tolle is, I feel like he's holding court in a very lazy, leaning back on the couch position in the corner of the house.
Yeah, that feels right.
And you see him right when you walk in and you're like, oh shit, okay, I've got about 2 hours to figure out how to connect with Eckhart.
Oh.
And I just know that you would do it and you could do it in the best way. I'm just wondering if I could learn a little bit from you right now in our
I don't
audience.
know. This stresses me out.
This one stresses you out?
Yeah.
Really?
And also, like, it's hard to answer. I'd have to feel the vibe and feel the blah, blah, blah. But, like,
Yeah. But you would try. That's the thing about you is I feel like, and not in a douchey way.
here's what I would do. I'll tell you.
Thank you.
I'd find a way to introduce myself to him.
Okay.
And I'd probably
fan.
do a little gushing.
Love
Yeah.
it. You got to do a little gush.
I'd try to make him laugh his wonderful little laugh. I'd come in with humor, talk
Okay.
about the part. So first gush, then I'd be like talking about the party and finding a way to get in.
What kind of levity do you think is tickling
Oh,
Eckhart?
he has a good sense of humor. And then and then I'd leave. I'd leave that chat
Okay.
moment.
Cool.
And then I think towards the end, or if I'd be kind of keeping tabs on him, and if it seemed like he was leaving or if we were leaving,
Mm-hmm.
I would go up to him and I would go, like, all my better judgment tells me not to do this, but I can't resist asking you if you would ever be a guest on my podcast. Like, it would,
And then a little spiel about your podcast?
yeah.
Nice.
I mean, that's how I got Patton Oswalt, Mark Maron on Totally Lame back in the day. That were like, those were huge deals.
We had a hookup. Remember? Very much so.
Well, no. I mean, yes, we did.
Yeah.
But I don't think that she was like the initial reach out.
I always thought
think
she
I
was.
saw him.
And you just went for it.
Yeah.
Do you think, and I don't want to blow up your spot and make you feel uncomfortable, but would you be a little flirty with Eckhart?
Well,
With your humor, maybe?
Now we're
With
going
the
back
levity?
to what's flirting and what's not flirting. I mean, our definitions of flirty are different. Would I be the way I am at parties? Yeah. Would I show my tits? Yes.
Okay.
Would I,
I like the idea of him experiencing your breasts in such a pure, present way. Do you know what I mean? In
Yes.
not in a pervy way, just in a like a delightful, wow, I didn't know that this party was going to be this, but like, look at these tits. This is great. And like, this is what life is. And I'm present for the moment. And I
Aren't
get to
all
enjoy
breasts
this.
kind of like that? Like, well, I feel like as a man, when you see breasts, sometimes you think, okay, well, you're not being present because you're like, this might lead to something else.
Very good point. Yeah.
But what I find so interesting about breasts is that it's like you never know what you're going to get on the nipple.
No, you don't.
It's all different nipples, and you could think that you know what the nipple is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it will surprise you, and there's something so vulnerable about that.
Yeah. There really is. There really is.
Okay.
Can we talk about tits for a little bit longer? Let's get into it.
We have so much to cover.
Do you want to get to the most uncomfortable conversation today? Because I got it right here.
Is that the most uncomfortable one?
I don't know. Do you want to start with something else?
No, let's start with this.
Okay. Maybe I'll show this to the camera in case we ever post this or something. Okay, I need to set this up for you because you don't know this part of the story. Yesterday, we're in holiday week. Kids are off school. We're not working. We're just like, we're in holiday zone. And I feel like we had some sort of loose plans for yesterday, but then they kind of went out the window. And I got a phone call that a piece of gear in the studio I had taken to get repaired. I got a phone call that was like, hey, your gear's ready for pickup. And I was like, oh, crazy. And I was like, maybe I'll go get it right now because our plans had kind of evaporated.
Uh-huh. Is this all?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all part of it. And I'm already resenting you for, just not having trust in me. And you know what I mean?
Okay, go ahead.
So this place is in, I don't know, maybe like North Hollywood or something, Laurel Canyon Boulevard or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know, not where we live. So a little bit of a drive on the freeways, a couple different freeways I got to get on. So I'm on one of the freeways driving, and under my windshield, I see what could be a leaf
Flapping.
And then I'm like, oh, what's that? I keep driving, and then I'm like, oh, shit, that's a note. That's a note under my
Oh, my God.
windshield wiper. And I'm going, what does the note say?
Yeah.
I'm looking at my Google Maps, ETA to Gear Place, 25 minutes. And I'm thinking,
no. Hold on,
no, is the note going to make it?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, do I pull over? Do I pull over on the side of the freeway and get this? Do I pull off at an exit and stop? Or do I roll the dice and go to my destination? But if I do that, what if the note flies away and I never know what's on the note?
That would...
It was hard. Now, what would you have done in that situation?
The same thing I think you did.
Which was?
Drive to your destination.
Yeah, I just went to the destination. I rolled the dice. And luckily, the note was there when I got there. And when I got the note, I pulled it out and it says, park in front of your house. That's park in front of your underlined house.
And by the way, the scrawl of a madman.
Yeah.
Or a woman.
Well, when you underline your, I feel that they were angry.
Well, this is an anger management situation, which...
It's anonymous note, too.
Which also points to a few people in the neighborhood. But here we go. So this set off... We have so much to discuss around this. So let me give a lay of the land without giving too much away. But basically, we live in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
We can't always park in front of our house because we have a unique situation with like a shared driveway. And oftentimes when it looks like there's not enough space, or when it looks like we actually can't because we'd be blocking the drive for our neighbor.
And we're being courteous
And we're being
by not.
good neighbors
Yes.
by not parking there. So there are a few options. There's around the corner where we like to park now a lot of times because that means our kids don't have to cross the street to get to the car.
Yep.
We do park across the street sometimes right in front of our house, just
across
on
the street.
other side of the street.
Which is not in front of someone's house. It's the side of their house.
Yes. And that's another thing to think about.
It's very relevant, right?
Yeah. So both options are actually the sides of people's houses. And another thing I will say is we don't live in an area. It's very rare that it's like, oh, where am I going to park? It's not one of these LA neighborhoods where you're just like, you can't park. You cannot find parking.
Yeah.
Parking feels abundant.
We've lived in this neighborhood for, 5 years, something
Yeah.
like that. And maybe once I've had to park somewhere a half a block away, like once.
So this was, and also we are very friendly and on good terms with all of our neighbors. Like, and I'll get to that in a second. Like, you pulled me out of such a funk last night because of this note. I want to talk to you.
You were in the funk because of the note?
I want to talk to you about the emotional side of this. So,
And we experienced it very differently, which is odd.
very differently, and I really admire how you experienced it, and I wish I had more of that. But basically, we started. Okay, so there's the emotional side of it, and then there's the just mystery. What is this? Who did this? Who left this note side of things?
Yeah.
So you sort of launched into, you very calmly, you showed it to me. I was like, oh my God. Now,
I almost saved it for the podcast completely.
I'm glad you didn't.
Okay.
It would have put me in such a bad mood. This is layered on, you know what? I am going to get into the emotional side of it.
Please.
This is layered on top of, there is an intersection very close to our house that people just do not follow the rules. And they drive through the stop signs. They never stop. Crossing the street with our kids, a car was turning and it stopped and it saw us crossing. And then just a PSA, if kids are crossing in front of your car, wait till they get to the curb. In this case, the car went like Teddy was, if she had taken one step backwards from where she was, she would have been hit by this car. Like, the car waited for her to get barely out of the way.
Yeah.
And, I like stopped and did a big gesture to them, and they just saw me and just kept on going.
Yeah.
And then yesterday a bus almost hit us at this.
Yeah.
Like, it is, so that sort of thing makes my blood boil and makes me like lose faith in humanity.
Okay.
And it makes me think people just fucking suck. Like, it makes me so mad. And then this note from a neighbor, where also when we start to get to like, who could have left it and why do they care, and the way they wrote it, and there's such a, like, even if that is an issue, there's such a nicer way to go about, like, excuse me, on trash days it's hard to blah blah blah. Like, we still don't quite know who or why they did this.
Oh, well, that's part of the whole thing for me.
If
We
they're
don't at all. We're on
Throw
the
a
mission.
please on there. Like, please park in front of your house. Don't
Yeah.
underline your. Like, the rage, I feel like there's this edge with everyone. And it's made me really feel like I dislike people. I will say, reading our reviews and stuff is like a nice way of having faith restored in people. So, but yesterday, and it was my day of doing a puzzle. I get these really fancy woodcut amazing puzzles from Waterford Puzzle Company. I almost forgot it. And it's a super big treat for me. And yesterday was my puzzle day of the holiday. And like the whole time I was just stewing and this being upset Now, meanwhile, you're like, oh, I'm getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But you're almost like excited about it.
Yes.
And you don't seem to have the like resentment towards humanity coming out of it. And you don't, like, 5 minutes later, you were washing your hands and doing the dishes, and I said something about it, and you go, oh my God, are you still thinking about that?
I did.
And I was like,
Yeah.
am I still? This is like the appetizer. I'm going to be thinking about this all fucking day.
Yeah.
And you're able to just move on and live your life and not like carry. And I want to know how you do that.
I want to say one thing. I think it's kind of a change for me lately, to be completely honest. I think there's other versions of me that would have really stewed on this. Especially the idea that we could possibly be in the wrong, in which we need to entertain those on this for our audience.
Yeah.
But even if we are in the wrong at all, how this person went about it, I was like, what a trash bag. But I quickly got more involved in I'm going to figure out
Who it
who
is.
fucking did this.
Well, that
And
was
I'm
the-
going to kill them with kindness and be more neighborly and show them how to be a good neighbor. And they're going to feel horrible.
Well, also there were a few neighbors that I then walked through each of our neighbors who it could have been.
Oh, yeah.
And there are a few neighbors that it was really upsetting if it was them.
If it
because
was
we're
them,
on like
sure.
really good terms with them.
But we
And
knew
also I respect their by the way, the other thing I want to say is there's no legality to this park in front of your house. It's a rule that someone decided should exist. It does not exist in our neighborhood. There's no rule that you are supposed to park anywhere. There's no
But there is I think there is a common courtesy of try to take up your own space with parking. I can see many scenario slightly different where if I was a neighbor, I would be annoyed if someone kept parking in my spot. But in our particular predicament, we're not taking up anybody's spots at all. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah,
and we have
but-
a good reason to not park where
right in front where
people
the
might
people might think we should. But let me say this.
Yeah.
Yes, in the sense I guess there is a courtesy, but there are no law. I'm saying there's nothing illegal about you can park wherever
Sure.
you want. And even you saying there's a courtesy element, like that's a made up thing. Like there really isn't. And in fact, we have someone who parks in front of our house frequently who doesn't even live in the neighborhood and who unfortunately I believe is unhoused and lives in their van.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very friendly and like we know him, and in a weird way I almost feel like sometimes comforted with his presence because I'm like not that I trust him to have him come babysit or anything, but like he seems like a nice enough guy, and
Sure.
he's in some ways a better neighbor than other neighbors. Like so what I'm trying to say is there's not this is a like the way they wrote that is as though like, you know, put your dog shit in the trash. Like,
Yeah.
but this is not an openly adopted law or rule that everyone abides by is the other part of this that's annoying to me.
But I also think that I disagree a little bit that I do think there is kind of an unwritten rule a little bit. But let's say even if there is an unwritten rule, I don't think we're violating that unwritten rule in our predicament at all. I think there's other scenarios where people could be caused to be more annoyed. And I don't know how we're annoying anybody really.
Well, how
And I
did you
want
get
to
out of
to the
your
bottom of it?
I know. How did you let's stay with the emotional part of it. How did you get out of or how did it not stew with you? It stayed with me. I was in a bad mood all day, all through puzzling because of this, and this compounded with like the bus incident and all of this stuff that's happened recently that I'm just like, well,
Yeah.
people just suck. Which then I was like, but today is my puzzle day. Like today is supposed to be like one of the most enjoyable days I have of the entire year.
Yeah.
And then I was mad that I was mad.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after you came back in after T-Bash and we were talking about our neighbors and we were joking about like, what if it was like some random neighbor we know, blah, 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 who just like was a busybody and kept eyes on things and decided
Which
to
I think is a possibility that whoever wrote this note might not be affected at
all.
all by us parking.
So, but then it's got us started talking about our neighborhood and, you know, our kids who go to school,
Yep.
their friends, parents and families. And I feel it put me in a different mindset where I'm like, I feel very fortunate for this neighborhood. It kind of restored my faith in humanity.
Sure.
I was like, I love knowing these people. I love walking around the neighborhood. I love that at this point in time we are friendly with like probably like every other house. Like there's a people we know or families or whatever.
Sure.
And that snapped me out of it. But that was a full 12 hours after or whatever.
Yeah.
So how did this not make you stewing in it?
I don't know. And I do feel like there's been a change in me, sort of. But I've gone straight to... Okay, one thing I was like, we wanted to rule out two neighbors that it would have been pretty hard pill to swallow if it was them that had done an
Yes.
anonymous note. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to wait till I bump into them in person. But I will say it ate me up a little bit more than that I ended up texting them. So in that regard, I was like, I'm just going to text them. And I ruled out two neighbors.
Will you read the text that you sent and just be kind of, you know,
if I
obviously
can.
don't say names and
Let me see if I can on the iPad if I have that.
I thought you did an excellent job.
Oh, I do have it here. Hey, just wanted to check in and see if you guys left a note on my car today asking me to park elsewhere, ? I hope it's okay that we sometimes park on the side by your house, and then it gets into the details about why. Let me know. Thanks. And they wrote back, no, we didn't. And I just assumed it was for that reason. They acknowledged the thing. And I said, thanks. I didn't think it was you guys, but wanted to just double check. Please let me know if there's ever a problem. And he said, okay, thanks. I appreciate it. But
That alone, knowing it's not them. And you know what's funny?
Yeah.
We hadn't even, in our sleuthing of who it could be.
Yeah.
So, like, it's those two people. Then there's this nice, sweet, elderly couple across the street that we're like, is it them? It seems
We're
weird.
very worried.
Hang on, let me walk through the possible suspects.
Yeah.
This elderly couple across the street that we're always friendly with, it just doesn't seem their style to leave that sort of note, but maybe. The time that you said it might be annoying for them is like on trash day.
Yeah, which I could see it be annoying for them.
But then on the other side of the street, there is someone who we don't know very well.
Yeah.
But would be such a hypocritical note to leave because they also park in different places, not in front of their house.
Yeah.
And in fact, the place where you parked when you got this note, we think, is where that guy parks.
But it's not in front of his house.
It's the exact same equivalent. It would be like on the side across the street from his house. Now, he has some rage issues, though. We have walked by hearing him in a domestic dispute.
Yeah.
Where the whole neighborhood can hear him screaming and yelling.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then it's really funny. We didn't even consider the neighbors on the other side of us because they're so lovely.
Which ones? That sometimes help us with stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, couldn't be them.
It couldn't be them.
No.
Now, there is a woman who lives like at the dead end of this area who is a horrible human being who has slung homophobic slurs at neighbors before.
Yeah.
And she's just a crotchety old bitch, basically.
Yeah.
She has a garage
Yeah.
uses, But I could see her being that crazy as to leave that sort of unhinged
It's
note.
just upsetting her knowing where we live and parking our cars.
Like
right
in
there.
her mind, it's like, well, everyone should park in front of their house, even if it doesn't affect her at all.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So my thing is, I ruled out
is
two.
this the?
No, I think this is very relatable for people. It might be super boring, but let me just put my side in.
Okay.
We ruled out 2 people that would have been kind of hard for us to deal with if it had been them.
Yes, relieved.
Then the most likely next subject, I marched over to their house this morning
Oh my God.
with the note, which I was like, do I bring the note? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm pulling out the note to be like, hey, did you guys write this note?
Can I get you guys to write these words exactly so I can compare handwriting?
But their gate was locked. But here's my thought. In all of this, I got kind of excited about figuring it out. And here's why. 1, just knowing and not having to worry about it anymore. 2, maybe extending some sort of olive branch if, hearing someone out and just being neighborly. 3, worst case scenario, if I find the person and they're an asshole, then I've got some bona fide beef in the neighborhood that I don't mind that either. Like
You don't?
no, like we have those
I don't want beef.
but it would be silly beef that I would always feel fine and it wouldn't get to me, but
Yeah.
I would feel fine like mad dogging them when I would see them. Like we have some neighbors that I think it's like someone that doesn't look like a relative of theirs or something that just seems like bad news. And when that guy rolls around, I will sometimes stand out on the curb and like just be staring at them and like kind of mad dogging them.
What?
Yeah. Like I
Andy,
just
you gotta be careful.
no. Of course.
Yeah.
I'm never like trying to provoke anybody or something, but I do have like a pride of like don't mess with us. Just stay away. Like we have eyes on you. Do you know what I mean? Like
God, I don't know.
like I'm not being sheepish around those things, but I'm not getting involved at all.
Right.
But I will walk a little bit slower taking the trash can out with a gaze fixed on people, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
I have to say, like, when I find out who this is, now, if it's the elderly couple,
I'm going to make it right.
I think that I can hear them out and extend a neighborly whatever. That's fine. If it's the rage guy, I hate him.
Yes. And
Psycho.
Then it's like, we hate that guy.
But yeah, I don't love that feeling.
Yes.
I don't like walking out of my house. It's so stupid. After that note, there's because there's also this weird voyeuristic quality to it. Like, someone knows which house is ours.
Yeah.
Someone's aware we're not parking there. Someone knows where we park. Someone knows whose cars are ours. And, like, as I was putting the kids to bed last night, I, shut the blinds. I was like, I don't want anyone.
That's why we have to find out, because that's the other thing for me. I'm more comfortable if it's like rage guy that we now have beef with, knowing it's rage guy, than us not solving the mystery and always wondering what the fuck happened. Now, a couple potential things. There's a world, let's say I go over to the elderly couple's house and they chicken out and they don't admit to the note, and then they're just stuck in this hell without saying something. There is that possibility.
You don't need to play out the scenario, Andy. This is like where your brain. I'm just like, oh my God, you have played out scenarios where they are stuck in a hell.
Yeah, because whoever did this, it's an anonymous note. That's the least neighborly thing about this. If we had this problem with someone, one, we would be so much more polite in the note, and we would also leave our name, address, right? If so they could talk to us if they wanted to talk to it. And we would even be like, hey, if you want to talk about this, maybe even leave a phone number or something. The fact that it's anonymous is what drives me bonkers a little bit.
I'm also I'm laughing to myself imagining you leaving. Oh, well, this is hilarious because I thought about leaving a note recently.
Okay. What was the scenario?
The woman who has her car parked like in front of the elderly people's house,
In front of what house?
whose dogs get out a lot. Do
Oh,
you
the
know?
dog people that you've had to deal with a bunch?
No.
Oh, yeah,
You know
I'm with
who
you.
I'm
I'm with
talking
you. Yeah.
about. She drives a black car. Why are you laughing?
We have to circle back on another neighbor's story with those dogs shortly. Go on.
Okay, so she has been driving. Do you know the black car I'm talking about?
I don't.
It's parked right there on where this thing might have gone down. But she's just been driving through stop signs and is on her phone. I'm watching her just drive through.
Yeah.
And so I almost left a note, or didn't almost. I contemplated writing a note but would have been very nice. Like, hi, I've seen you on your phone missing stop signs. Like, our neighborhood has a lot of small kids. Please be more conscientious. Thank you. I would not have left my name and address. But I would have been a lot nicer about it.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, if you went to leave that note, but the nice version, hey, would you mind parking your car in front of your house, which is a made up
Yeah.
rule that you've created and decided all should abide by?
Yeah.
Would really appreciate it. Thanks, Andy. If you want to discuss further, call me. I would be like, Andy, like, something is going on with you. Like, this is crazy. Like, you're fixating on some weird made up thing that you've decided.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is all a way of saying that I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And hopefully next week we'll have. I tried to get the answer this morning. We got to see if it's the nice elderly couple. And if it isn't, oh gosh, does the search get harder for me?
Well, if it isn't, I mean, if both you and I, if and when we see the rage guy, need to ask him.
I think you don't ever need to ask the rage guy. I think I can ask the rage guy.
Why can't I?
I don't want you involved with rage guy.
Oh, that's fair.
You know? You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe neither of us should be involved with rage guy.
I want to know.
What would have happened if that letter had just flown off?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I was trying to tell that part of the story. Because then would they keep leaving notes? Would someone key our car? Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, so that's funny and interesting to me. To me, I'm like, we're not changing fucking shit. Anyone can leave as many notes as they want. This is not a law. This is something you've decided that whatever. Like, your book of courtesy includes this weird thing that is not right for everyone. Yeah. But you are like, your mindset is going to, how can we fix this? Which I appreciate. I think that is neighborly of you.
Yeah.
But I'm like, there's nothing to fix. This coward who left this weird, angry, annoying note. The other thing I was thinking was, like, our daughter's been coughing. So stupid. But I was a little stressed out yesterday because she was coughing a lot.
Yeah.
And
we got a bad look in the grocery store.
From coughing, even though you're all masked.
Yep.
I mean, we're the only people masked anymore, by the way. I feel like they're coming back. But I went to my Pilates class yesterday. I'm the only masked person. But she was coughing and kind of having some wheezing stuff to the degree that I got out the oximeter thing. And I have kind of like PTSD because Otis was hospitalized when he was a tiny baby.
Sure. Yeah.
And really scary. And like, we almost lost him. Like, that was terrifying. And I'm so scared about that. And I was just thinking, like, what if, you never know, like, what if you put a note like that on someone's car and they're coming home from finding out a friend died, or from like, you never know what someone's going through, and to kind of add fuel to the fire because of your stupid, whatever rage shit, like, someone must be so annoyed about that. Now we're 5 years in to doing this, that they've been stewing on it.
Which makes me think it's the elderly couple. Unfortunately. You saying that out loud right now, it's the most plausible situation, listeners. I'm going to find out before we record our next episode if it's them.
This is a classic case of someone, I think we all do this. I know people who do it more than others, but like where I'm trying to use an example in a way that's not like
They're suppressing their rage.
yeah, like you don't want to make a big deal out of things. And so you wait and wait and wait and then you overcompensate. Like had you just kind of brought it up as you went versus like then you wait and then when you finally do it, you're bringing all of this baggage in with it versus just having said or at the onset or like before it's been, because in their minds, this is a war they've been waging with us for a long time, and we've just been obliviously.
Now this note did show up after take your trash out day time, which makes it harder to park on our block. And there is a world where I could see us being annoying parking on the side of this house during trash week. So, and also, what's interesting about the note is it's not super aggressive. It's like it's the passive aggressive version of them losing their top, and they underlined your house, right? Like your house. But I can see now as we talk this out, it has to be them.
If you take a blue light to that note, there's like "you assholes" is written underneath your house.
But
I just realized we've spent 40 minutes on this. I feel like
oh well, we better move on.
This is the type of quality content. Listen, I did want to say we have a few new patrons, and I'm very excited about that.
Oh, nice.
I want to set up another Patreon live stream.
Yeah.
That's going to be taking place soon. So if anyone wants to participate in that with us, go sign up at patreon.com/totallylame. We have a lot of fun on these. And also then we post the videos of them after the fact so you can watch it.
Love it. One other neighbor thing that I want to ask, because I know you clocked this, but we never talked about it. Recently, there was like 2 women walking their dogs, and they were kind of like bigger husky dogs.
Yes.
And that house that you're talking about where the little dogs get out, they got out and were chasing these huskies, and the huskies were leashed. But the women with the huskies they looked so nervous and were like, get your dogs, because their huskies were going to like attack them. And so it was escalating so fast.
I heard that.
I happened to be going outside and I ran over and was like, hey. And I think I scared the shit out of everybody, including the owners of the huskies, because I kind of came up behind them. But I was just trying to help them by scaring off the little dogs. And then that did help. I did like shield them from the little dogs for a minute. And then the owners kind of got them. And I was like, does this one, like, do you need to get it or whatever? But it was kind of funny. And then I just kind of walked along and my blood didn't raise at all. It was the weirdest thing. And then I was just like, like, and had thought like, wow, I really just rattled all those people.
Well,
but it was
came outside.
It was being helpful though. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think even if they were rattled, I think they were probably appreciative. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
I was trying to keep the little dogs from getting whatever.
Yeah.
But then I did notice, I don't know what's happened to me lately. I was just like, I could give a shit. Like before, I would have been like
Do you think it's your ADHD medication?
I think it might be. I really, truly think it might be.
I'm starting to feel like, okay, let's go into Health Corner. We have the
I want to talk about my hair falling out too in Health Corner. Where do you want to start in Health Corner? Or can I start there real fast?
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, I feel like I jumped on your Health Corner.
Yeah.
I'll jump in then. The other day, I took a shower, and I'm drying off in the shower afterwards, and I look down, and there is hair everywhere. And not downstairs hair, it was like
Head hair.
head hair. And I'm like, is it head hair? And then I put my hands in my hair and then look at my hands and I had all this hair in my hands.
Oh.
And I was like, Elizabeth, will you come in here? And you came in and I showed you and you're like, oh shit. And I'm getting freaked out. I'm like, what is going on? Is it the ADHD meds? I'm Googling that. Like, maybe there's a chance of that, but it doesn't seem like I'm digging deep, deep, deep. But I also had started taking medicine to not lose your hair recently, which didn't think that would be the culprit.
Yeah.
But I've been taking oral minoxidil, and minoxidil is Rogaine, like the greasy stuff you put on your hair.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can take a little pill of it.
Yeah.
And I've been taking that. So I Google minoxidil hair falling out, and it's just thread after thread. And I was like, oh, what? And it's called the shedding. And about 6 to 8 weeks after you start minoxidil, you start shedding all the like weak fries that get off the boat. You know, you kind of start telling them to get rid of.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, to make way for the new kids in town.
I always think about like that Seinfeld where George is putting the cream on her hair and Elaine's like, I see some sprouts. Am I going to see sprouts or is it just going to kind of grow?
I think it's just going to get full. We'll see if it works. Now I'm kind of excited. I'm like, oh, this might actually work. Because they tell you won't notice anything for like 4 months. Mm-hmm. But I at least know that the pill's doing something. Mm-hmm. If any of our listeners have experienced the shedding, please, hit me up so I know I'm not alone. But it was so jarring, and I was bummed because I was like, oh, if it's the ADHD meds, I've been on such a journey with that, figuring out what's the right one, trying all different types. It's been such a pain in the ass, but at the end of the day, it's been so helpful. And I was like, that's going to be annoying if I'm back to square one. But it turns out it was my bald pills, I think. So that's my health update. But it was fun. It was great. I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Okay. So my update is, remember when you were going to get diagnosed with ADHD and you were like, I'm almost scared, or after you had said this privately with me, but then we talked about it on the podcast. Like, you were scared after the testing that she was going to be like, you don't have ADHD, because once it all clicked for you, you're like, this explains so much about how I operate.
Yeah.
And rewrite some of the stories that you had written about yourself, about like, I can't finish things, or I'm lazy, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's how I feel right now about my thyroid stuff. I am like, speaking of hair, I feel like I'm losing hair all the time now. All of a sudden, my weight continues to creep up. It's holiday time, so there's been some chocolate. I can't fathom where this extra pound came from after 2 old-fashioned cacio e pepe and cookies. But truly, I have gained like 10 pounds in like 6 weeks.
Okay.
Just, it does not match what my life has been. It's kind of settled, which is good, because gaining the weight sucks, but I'm also like, I'm going to Pilates. My back feels pain-free. I'm kind of like, okay, I've talked to you about it. I'm like, it's okay if this is it, but I also just don't want it just to keep going and going and never stop. And I feel lethargic, though. I just feel like not myself, and it all matches all of this thyroid shit.
Yeah.
And I had my blood taken last week. I'm waiting on the results, but I am nervous that and what I suspect is he is going to come back and say it's totally fine, which probably people listening are like, that's good. You don't want to have this. But in a weird way, I'm like, well, if that's not it, then what the fuck is going on? Because something's off. Or is this just premenopause? Like, is this what? I don't know what's going on.
But what feels off besides the weight? Or is that
also, well, then we talked about, I went off of Wellbutrin.
Yeah.
Which is another thing. And maybe I'm like, maybe I just go back on that, and then am I on it for the rest of my life? Or are any of our listeners just on Wellbutrin forever? Like, maybe that's what's going on. But then it gets to this other thing, like talking about how do you just brush it off? Maybe it's this medication. Like, who are we without our medications? You know, first of all, I'm dead because I have had to take medication for my asthma and allergies forever.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But I both find comfort and extreme discomfort in the idea of like, oh, the best version of myself is this version that has to be on this pill forever.
Yeah.
And do you relate to that with the ADHD stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I've never had to take any pills, and I still think I'm figuring out. But with that stuff, I'm like, oh, it's just, it just seems very helpful. And I also don't. The difference with it is I don't have to take it every day. It's just take it as like when you need it. So it's like on Christmas or yesterday. I don't think I took it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm finding it very helpful to focus when I'm working is the most thing. So it's a little bit of a different beast, but I do see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, we're talking about something that just, we should probably just wait and get the test results and talk about it. But I'm like, my hair, I mean, I have a very thick hair in general, but it feels significantly thinner, and like, I'm just like.
But it's interesting hearing you just say all this out loud.
Yeah.
And we'll find out about the thyroid stuff. But couldn't it just be as simple as like, oh, I stopped taking Wellbutrin and it's the holidays? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so. I was just going to say, but there's an emotional component.
But that's exactly the stopping taking the Wellbutrin. Like
But then I'm like, oh, so is this who I am? Like, I'm this kind of. We had this conversation last night. You and I. This is pretty interesting, I think. Now, this is painting with a wide brush, and it's lacking nuance. But just like on the surface, it's kind of funny. You came in last night. I was still stewing from the day of feeling outraged about things. You put me in such a better headspace. And I literally had the thought, like, this is pretty morbid, but you know that's my jam. Like, without Andy in my life, I would just be a grumpy, like, no one would be snapping me out of the way you do. You constantly are kind of pulling me into a better headspace.
Yeah.
And I don't want to paint the picture like, well, this is what we were talking about last night. I think that you're kind of a more negative person in general.
Yeah, I am.
I'm a more positive person, but I can slip into grumpy town, especially within the like safety of our home and family.
Yeah.
More easily and more often than you do.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I'm more positive, but I can get grumpy. You're probably more negative, but you have a more kind of steady mood temperament.
But I also think that, I think everything you're saying is true. What I think is interesting, let's talk about like the negativity.
Yeah.
It's almost like my negativity. Where would you say you're at with like your worldview on humanity? Because that's not even necessarily my negativity, but like, are you like fucking humans just suck? I know yesterday with the bus and stuff, yes, but like in general,
no, I think that. Well, it's interesting because then I was reading this book after. When I think about bigger picture stuff, which I do a lot, and like death and like what's next and what's the point here, I have a very positive view of humanity.
Yeah.
And that we're all here. Suffering is part of the human experience. Pain is part of the human experience. But it's all for us to be able to experience the highs of life as well. Like, and so, yeah, I have a pretty positive view of humanity in general. That's why when it dips like it did yesterday, I think it affects me really hard.
Yeah.
But I am kind of like, are we all so fragile? Like, is my emotional state, you know, my baseline? I've used Wellbutrin on and off to treat depression.
Yeah.
And depression to me is usually kind of numbing out, not being able to experience joy the way I normally do.
Yeah.
and it has really helped me. But now that I'm like a month or 6 weeks out off of it, I'm like, I still experience joy. And
Yeah.
So the thing it was treating me for is not an issue right now. But I feel like my baseline is lower. Like I don't feel like I have this like steady. I'm experiencing like mood swings and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, I think though, getting back to the negativity, I don't think either of us are like the world is shit, right?
No.
But for me personally, I do think I carry so much more negativity about just like this thing's gonna go wrong, this thing's not gonna work out. Like,
Well, you even
this is
go to like the elderly couple who left a rage note on your thing. It's not going to work out for them.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so like that is my form of like negative stuff, and I think it permeates so much of my thought processes. And we've talked about the math I do on stuff, right?
Yes.
Which I think is getting way better lately. But also at the same time, I don't think my mood, my even keel is much more even keel. Where I think people that would meet you're much more bubbly and like outgoing and like friendly feeling, but you can dip more frequently than let's say I do, but I'm not really reaching up to those higher levels anyways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do think like if you're looking at some sort of like you're pretty steady.
Yeah.
And I have peaks and valleys going on a lot.
Yeah. But it was I don't know, I found it very fascinating us talking about it last night of us I just like very genuinely realizing that about each other, but it didn't seem it was like kind of comforting to talk about for me.
Have you noticed in me in like the last 6 weeks an emotional change?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a little bit. I've just noticed that it's I would say I see you drop into a grumpy mood quicker than normal. But at the same time also you're funny because I feel like I could walk into the kitchen and feel some sort of grumpiness, like seeing you getting frustrated with like, I don't know, something or something. And then like 5 minutes later, you have a big smile, like, and I'm like, well, I wonder what changed. You know what I mean? Like, I think it also doesn't take as much for you to get that joy little boost. Where me, it takes a lot to like rev me up into that zone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think it takes a lot more. It's kind of a bigger thing. When you drop into a grumpy mood, it's more kind of like an existential thing, whereas I'm just popping in. And here's my question for you.
Yeah.
This is so stupid because it's a hypothetical. But if my thyroid stuff comes back and he's like, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Do you think I should go back on Wellbutrin?
I think you should ask your doctor and be like, I think that would be the perfect time to ask your doctor. And the other thing I do have, I can relate to it more, the medicine thing. But I would almost talk to some of your peers that you know that have been in this. Because you have taken some sort of medicine. We're not even talking about Wellbutrin type medicine, just allergy medicine, all that kind of medicine. You've had to deal with that your whole life. To me, it's like novel and new completely.
Yeah.
And I will say one thing about so I met with my psychiatrist yesterday. When I started the ADHD medication, there's like instant release medication, which I think I've talked about, where you're taking like 1 or 2, sometimes 3 pills a day. And I really didn't like the choose your adventure of that. Where I was like, so I have to decide each day?
Yeah.
Fuck that. Just tell me to take this 1 pill. So then I went on this journey with the doctor of trying different extended release ones and whatnot. And then finally, after trying like 4 different things, landed on one which worked for me. But then when I got to that point, I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't need this all day long. can I try this particular one in the instant release just to see? And he was like, yeah, totally. And then I talked to him yesterday, and I was like, now I just don't know where I'm at. I'd finally kind of wrapped my head around what this is and be like, oh, maybe today I just need one. But I was like, also, but like those other ones, like I can definitely feel the crash from them and whatnot. And he was just like, why don't you try the extended release a little bit more and then we'll decide. But so it's been kind of a mind fuck for me because I'm like, am I deciding when I need this medicine or when I don't
Right.
need it? But then there's other people that have been taking stuff their whole life and they're like, yeah, this fucking helps me. And in my personal thing, I'm like, oh yeah, this helps me. I want to figure this out and not feel bad about it. And
Well, that's true. And you think about like, well, the allergies is a perfect example, or like people who have heart issues who have to take, pulmonary medication or cardiology, whatever.
yeah,
Like maybe this is no different. And similar to you, I think there's something about it being like mental,
well, no, there's a big,
where I'm like, it's so linked to personality or whatever. Like to me, yeah, you're right. I've been on this allergy medication. I'm going to be on Singulair for the rest of my life. When I don't take it for a day, I'm wheezing. Like, so maybe I just need to look at this like this is not any different.
there's a great argument that people use that exact argument all the time to deal with that stigma of it. Like, oh no, mental health should get the same exact, be in the same exact category as your allergy medicine. Like we don't perceive it as that, right? But it should, which I think I can totally hear that argument and it resonates. But then if I'm honest, I can also hear the argument that's like, fucking so much of this ADHD medication is fucking stimulants. You're just giving people methamphetamines and it's these big companies making all this money. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can kind of
Well,
hear
that's
that
kind of how
too.
I feel about Wellbutrin. Like
Right.
it's giving me this like, well, who's to say I shouldn't just be kind of like tipsy for the rest of my life?
Right.
Like, yes, it's a feeling I enjoy, but and in the case of Wellbutrin and me, it usually means I lose a little weight. I feel more even keeled. It gives me a little pep in my step. Like it does feel almost like I'm cheating.
Yeah. I think I bet so many people relate to that feeling. And it's the mind fuck because the solution is having faith in that, like, no. Mental health should be just as valuable as real health. But then, yeah, but it's a hard thing to think. My psychiatrist yesterday, it really has been a journey trying all these different things.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I know I'm being nitpicky. And he goes, let me stop you right there.
Ooh, I love this guy.
And he's like, we can be as nitpicky as you want. He's like,
You're paying me $900 an hour. Nitpick away.
Nitpick away. Oh my God. See, but that's so true too. Fuck. No, but he's like, we want to find, the lowest dose possible that helps you out
Yeah,
legitimately. And he's like, if something's not working, and I think that's the other thing that if we're going on Reddit and whatnot, I think some people don't take the time to do that at all. And I think there's some people that are medicated that aren't on the right dose, that are afraid to ask to change it, or like, can we try a higher dose? Can we try a lower dose? I don't know. Now we're kind of getting off territory, but I think the dilemma you're talking about is so valid, and it is weird because it's these two forces opposing each other.
Yeah.
But it is like, fuck, if it was your allergy pill and if getting through
Function
life
better on it. Yeah.
But then it's like, I don't know. I was thinking about caffeine and our
God.
culture
Yes.
in caffeine. If you've looked at just Starbucks exploding, everyone's self-medicating with caffeine too.
I mean, I do. Absolutely.
Anyways, but I would talk, I mean, maybe it'll feel good hearing from other people on the whole Wellbutrin thing
Yeah.
too. Because really it is like, is it just a bummer in this idea of like, yeah, it's this worry that the real you isn't the you on the Wellbutrin, but that's also not true.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I totally get it.
There's something about like, We're going very long. That's fine. So when I went to give blood for the thyroid panel,
Yeah.
there was this mother and son waiting at the doctor's office.
Yeah.
Adult son, mid-30s, probably mid-60s mom.
How'd the mom look though?
Great tits, everything good.
Like,
Honestly, she looked good.
okay, go.
I know you were asking as a joke, but attractive mom and son, important. Just kidding, it's not important. But she was in her workout clothes and was like waiting for the doctor, and
Were they both had an appointment, do you think?
yeah, I think he went to give blood for something, and I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, while they were waiting and I was waiting next to them, I hear this conversation, and it was so interesting to me because I do think there's this thing of women. It's also not fair for me. I mean, probably men and women, but I, of course, was like honed in on this as someone who is going to be the mother of adult children someday,
Yeah.
and wanting to have a solid relationship with them. And I've noticed this like amongst my friends and their moms, that women in that generation have a very hard time. It is kind of across the board. There are a few moms who are the exception, where they're like in touch emotionally. Many have gone to therapy,
Yeah.
whatever. But where they just cannot handle conflict in a way. And I don't even know what this argument was about. It was really interesting because I was witnessing the fallout of it, and I could tell that she was doing it wrong without even having context as to what the issue was.
Okay.
The best I could piece together was like the son's, either it's his sister or his wife and the mom had clearly have a complicated relationship.
Okay.
And the mom didn't do something or didn't say something. And the son was like, you don't need to build in that distance. And she's like, well, I just didn't even think about it. And he's like, it could have been such a nice thing if you had you could have done the video or something. I don't know what that was. And she's like, it just didn't even cross my mind. I wasn't trying to create distance. It didn't cross my mind. But what I'm hearing is he then clearly is unsatisfied with this because it's unsatisfying.
Yeah.
Like the deeper issue is you are not connecting with this person who's important to me or whatever. And it's not just about this one thing that happened. And the mom keeps going well, now I feel terrible.
Right.
I just feel horrible. Mom, you don't need to feel horrible. Well, I just didn't think, I'm truly sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it. Mom, it's okay. Then I can just see him going oh God, please, let's not go here. I wish I had never even brought it up.
Yeah.
Mom, it's okay. You don't need to feel terrible. Well, I feel horrible. I just feel horrible. And then it turned into
Your performance is next level right now. I don't know what's going on. I'm kind of getting turned on in a weird way. I don't know what is happening, but you're really locking into it.
Well,
Keep
I was
going.
very locked in.
Okay.
And then he reaches out his hand Mom, it's okay.
Yeah.
Really. And she wafts it. No, I just... So then it's
full
about
gamut.
she's the victim. I'm
Yeah.
just the worst. I'm so horrible, but it didn't even occur to me. So she's not even taking ownership. Oh, she even said, I take full ownership. It just didn't even occur to me. You're not taking full ownership. An apology is not going, I didn't think of it. It should be I'm really sorry. I should have thought of it. I will try harder to be more connected or whatever next time.
Yeah.
I'm watching this whole thing go down and I'm going oh God, I hope I am not like that. I feel like I've seen so many women of a certain age, basically the second that there is a whiff of criticism or conflict, they go to, I know, I'm just the worst mother, or I'm the worst everything, and I'm the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Instead of engaging in an actual conversation and taking ownership that we all are imperfect. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, it's the opposite of forging real connection. It's building walls.
Yeah.
And there's something about that also that I feel like a lot of these women are medicated, are like, self-medicating with alcohol, pills, whatever it is. And I'm like, I don't want to be that either. Like, I want to be my authentic self for my family and my kids forever.
Yeah. Well, to bring it back to that, it's also like, well, let's take the pills out of it for a second. I'm just wondering if this resonates for you.
Yeah.
Like, you could look at whoever, insert any of these women, if that's the archetype you want to think of. But, like, yeah, they're boozing every night and they're having 3 espressos in the morning and all this, like, self-medicating. Is that just more socially acceptable than you taking one Wellbutrin a day? You know what I mean? You're not abusing alcohol. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you zoom out that way, that's maybe another way to look at it. Mm-hmm. But getting back to these women, I think that what's so fascinating and what I'm so scared about is I don't think as a parent you can truly understand the dynamic you have with your children ever. I think it's more complicated than anyone has the self-awareness to have.
Their lens?
No, I think you can. I think we probably do. I hope we do a good job of that. But I do think there is a missing. You can never be completely self-aware, like in those relationships, and it does make me scared of like, what will those be like when our children are adult? What's the weird shit that they're going to be talking about on a podcast?
Oh, I think about that
us,
all the time.
Right?
Now, there are a few unicorn families I know where it does seem like the kids and the parents have really good relationship. And I think the thing that is different about those relationships are a couple of things. One is those parents, and this is a lesson I feel like parenthood teaches me time and time and time again. Your kids are not you.
Yeah.
This is something I think all parents struggle with, maybe particularly mothers. Like, your child is not an extension of you. Like, they are their own person. They're here on their own journey. And your job is just to love them, keep them safe, and encourage them to grow with confidence. But so I think the parents who truly value their children's, I mean, I would say your parents did that with you. Like, you were not an extension of your parents.
Yeah. Yep, agreed.
And my parents, I think, did that with me too, somewhat. I think my mom, I mean, there was always this pressure to like look a certain way or whatever. But the second thing is allowing the relationship to shift. Now, obviously, my relationship was cut short with my parents, but I think parents whose dynamic with their kids grow as their children become adults.
Yeah.
And turn, like, there's some parents who continuously like treat their adult children as though they are babies.
Yeah.
There's some parents, I think that forging new relationships at different stages of life and also like enjoying each other's company and is another element.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hope that we have good relationships. But yeah, our kids are gonna have their shit with us, and there's sometimes I can like, I'm like, well, that's something he's gonna talk about with his therapist.
Yeah,
that
totally.
Whatever. But we're doing the best we can, as does everyone. I mean, given the tools they have, but I just hope. Seeing that interaction with the mom, I just hope I don't shut down the opportunity for connection.
But it's also such that particular thing is like, I feel like we can be, and maybe you interpreted the mom so much of like it jarred you and rubbed you the wrong way. Because at the same time, you telling the story, I can kind of relate to the mom, but even more so just see the tools the mom has to shut it down and how those tools might be so easy to slip into, right?
Well, it does
Like
seem
she
it's
can
like
manipulate the situation,
self-preservation, yes.
so easily, and she's been those moves have been rewarded over the years, you know. So it's like I have a little sympathy for the mom too, and I'm like, oh, you're all like we're all just fucked sometimes.
I mean, what I will say is it made me, yes, I have sympathy from the mom. And in terms of like that generation, me painting that whole generation with such a wide, unfair brush, I'm like, that was a very hard time to be a woman. I really think so. I mean, there have been harder times to be a woman, certainly, but like that generation, especially straddling like the idea of like happy homemaker and also having to go to work and be successful, and also even if you're going to work, you still have to be happy home. Like there's so much on your plate.
Yeah.
And but what it did, I was like, I will never ever say to my kids, well, I'm just the worst mom ever.
Right.
I will never go to, oh, I know, because that is just slamming a door on connection.
Yeah.
You know.
Hey, and you never have done that, so no worries.
Well, you know,
You're batting 1,000.
Our kids the other day, I'm like, it's just such a different playing field, and we are very lucky with our kids. But like, I forget if you had a session, you were working or something, and I was with the kids, and I took a nap, or was trying to, and I hear the kids like fighting, kind of, and I heard them like getting stuff. I don't know. They were up to things that were unusual, and their fight sounded weird, but I was like, whatever. And you know, they seemingly worked through it or moved past it. But then I woke up and I came out, and like Teddy was confessing that she had got them both a piece of candy down, and did you hear us fighting and all of the stuff? And I was like, yeah, what was going on? And she was like, we were acting fighting because we wanted to get in trouble. And I was like, oh. And she goes, and I was like, why did you want to get in trouble? And she goes, because we wanted to know what it felt like. And I was like, oh my God. So now we're at the level of they don't even know what it feels like to be in trouble.
Yeah, what they know is what it feels like for mom and dad to be annoyed. You know what I mean? Like that's as far as we go. Like you remember the other day I was trying to take a nap and I got so annoyed because they kept waking me up. They just know how to annoy.
But
Yeah,
they've never, I mean, and that's not to say we give them consequences and stuff, but it's, you know, like Teddy has a friend at school that if she doesn't do well on the math test, she gets in trouble.
Yeah.
And Teddy's like, has no idea what that's like because we're just not like that. Like we give them consequences sometimes. Like if you don't finish your homework, there's no screen time until whatever. But, and I'm sure that will come. Obviously, they're still little, but I found that very funny to hear.
Yeah. Well,
we did it. I feel like this is a very long episode going into the new year. I think on Patreon we'll talk about New Year's resolutions and stuff like that. That's kind of a fun.
Yeah, and we'll have
topic.
an episode before. I actually have some stuff that I want to talk about as far as like it's more New Year's themed, so that's great. But this will come out.
I think this is the last episode before New Year's.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think you might be right. So this will come out. Oh no! What day do our episodes come out?
Wednesdays.
Oh, that's exciting.
Why?
No, you're right. This will come out on the 28th.
Great.
All right, so we'll talk about the new year, which will be great too. I'm excited about that on our next show. I got some stuff about the new year.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for the reviews. Thank you for telling your friends to listen to us. Our numbers are slowly crawling up.
What a Christmas present it would be for you to go give us a 5-star review or leave us a typed review or both.
Yeah. All right. Merry holidays. Happy all of it. And we'll see you in 2023.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Good night.